And it was pretty terrifying. He lived by himself, so he asked me, who was closest to him both physically and as well as in our relationships, to come up and help him. So I spent about a year doing chemo and radiation with him, wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, study for 3 hours, go to the gym, go to chemo/radiation, come back at 6 p.m., study until 10, 11 o'clock at night. And that really taught me the power of discipline, I'll be honest with you, because Florida State did a lot for me, but I will say that when I graduated, I was more on this, there was a spectrum of social and study. I was more on the social side. And so it taught me a lot about discipline and like just putting your head down and grit. And long story short, I'm very blessed to say he's been in remission for 4.5 years now. So that was huge for us. Thank you very much. And but when he went in remission, and during that whole process, I was kind of talking to people that were in the hospital with me. And I'd be sitting there for 6-7 hours, these people all lined up and down in these, like, imagine like if you ever get a manicure and a pedicure, it's kind of like that, but you're getting chemicals put in your body. But they were, young people, 25, 30, 35, 40 years old, and I kept on hearing the same theme, which was, I wanted to do this, but I was waiting until this got done, or I was going to do this later, or I would have done this if or when. And so I kind of felt the theme, which was like people kept on putting off of what they really wanted to do the thing that either there's parents, teachers, society, media told them that they should do, right? And so at that moment, I just took stock of what I had. I had no debt. I really had no friends because I'd spent the last year literally pretty much serving my dad, which I'm grateful for the opportunity for, but I had no friends, no girlfriend, no car, no rent. I was like, man, if I'm ever going to do something for myself, like this is the moment to do it. So I ended up taking the LSAT because I'd already studied for a year for it. I actually got a 170, which is in the top 10 percentile. So I had my pick of schools and I got accepted into some of my dream schools, but I decided I don't want to do this. I want to figure out what I actually want to do, which I didn't know what it was. And if anybody's listening to this right now, if you're trying to decide what you want to do, it's difficult if you don't know what you want to do. And then I'll just give my example. My parents were trying to tell me, this is what you should do, but how do they know what I should do if I don't know what I should do, right? So, and that's not a knock at my parents, they just wanted what was the best for me, but they don't know what's the best for me, because I don't know what's the best for me. So long story short, I Googled how to make money online, and like any smart kid would, and similar to you, I started following other people that were doing it. I remember like typing their name into Instagram and Facebook and messaging them, like, are you really making $10,000 a month, like off from your computer? And they'd be like, yeah, I am, and I'd hop on a call with a few of them, and that was like all the validity that I really needed to then go all in on the online business world, which is kind of what took me to where I am today.
Yeah, so I know you had mentioned in some interviews too that weren't you like a barista too?
Yeah, I worked in an Italian restaurant. So right after I graduated, or right after my dad went in remission and I Googled how to make money online, I was in this phase where it was no longer acceptable for me to not have a job, right? Because previously I was just serving my dad. And so we both were pretty much racking up credit card debt. And then when he was in remission and I was no longer going to law school, he was like, well, you got to start working. You can't just, be a bum. So I knew that I didn't want to go into the 9-to-5, like start the corporate thing, which is, there's nothing against that, but I knew that if I started that journey, I would have to stay in it almost. And so I was like, okay, what's a transitionary job that I can do that I can kind of work a little bit, study a little bit, and of course it was waiting tables. So I would wait in Italian restaurants in Atlanta called Il Giallo, and dinner started at 5, but really people really got there at like 6:30. And so what I would do is like study all day, do outreach to clients, and then when I got to the dinner restaurant, everybody would be like on their phones in the break room, and I would be watching videos, kind of like you did with me, and like learning how to do stuff. And after enough time, I ended up getting enough clients to where that replaced my waiting income, and I was able to leave that full time.
So you also got into the ClickFunnels space, right? And you made it to the 2 Comma Club. Is that what they call it?
Yeah,
right?
2 Comma Club, yeah.
Yeah, and not many get to that point. I remember you mentioned how like you started off with a few clients, and it was a struggle to really get it going. So what do you say to someone, like starting with nothing, having debt, like it almost seems like it's never going to end, but you broke through. So what really helped you to break through all that?
Yeah, I try not to give like philosophical, high-level stuff. I'll leave that for people that are smarter than me. For me personally, I think there's two pieces of advice I would give for those that are maybe in that situation. The first is that if somebody else has done it, you can do it, right? And so a part of that story I left out was that when I was like thinking about doing what I started, which was an advertising agency online, I actually remembered seeing on Facebook one of my fraternity brothers here at Florida State. His dad kept on posting about running ads online for all these local restaurants. And I was like, oh, cool. So I messaged my fraternity brother and I said, hey, do you mind connecting with your dad? He's doing the advertising agency, which I want to do because I dropped out of law school. I don't want to do this race anymore. And I remember him messaging back and he said, oh, no, that's my agency. My dad works for me. And this is the same guy that I would go to the Standard at Clyde's every single Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I was like, all right, if this guy can figure this out, once again, not a knock to him, but just in reality, I was like, if this guy can figure it out, I know that I can do the exact same thing. So the first thing is that I think a lot of people hate on social media, and of course I do think there's some drawbacks to it, but one of the benefits that it did for me at least was show me other people that were doing what I wanted to do and made it a reality, right? Where most of my main influences at the time, primarily my parents, my family. I come from an Indian background, so like at least in our family, it's like you're an engineer or a lawyer, or a doctor. Exactly. So that was like what you had to do to make money, right? And all this other stuff didn't make sense. And so luckily, I found other people that were doing the things that I wanted to do, and I was able to talk to them, like hear from them. Like it sounds weird, but like I went to my first event, touched them, and be like, okay, you're real. I'm not just imagining this stuff. And that was all I needed to kind of keep on going. And the second thing was, if you are thinking about either getting entrepreneurship or you're in entrepreneurship and you're thinking, and like maybe you have debt, whatever else it is, we kept a very lean, like right now we have 47 employees, we have a lot of overhead at this point. But when I first started, what I love is online service-based businesses, right? So online advertising agencies, SEO, consulting, anything around that realm, because there's really no costs involved. The only thing, if you don't have a lot of money, then you have a lot of time. Typically, if you have a lot of money, you don't have a lot of time, right? So you have to trade one of those two things. So if you're in debt, whatever else it is, I would really recommend learning an incredibly valuable skill set as a service, right, that you can do for somebody else. And then I would just go to people and I'd say, hey, I can run ads for you. And then I would talk to, let's say in the beginning, I talked to 500 people. One person would say yes. It didn't cost me anything to talk to those 500 people, but the hours and months of my time. But I was learning the whole time I did it. Finally, the first person said yes. They paid me $2,000. I spent $500 of it on ads, and I got to pocket the extra $1,500. So I think a lot of people will get into business and they think that I got to do all these degrees. I got to get an office. I got to get all these employees, all this stuff. Which in reality, in my opinion, some of the best-based businesses are online service-based businesses. You need $0 up front, and you can just do. You can just spend your time, and then eventually you'll be able to make enough money where you can start trading money for time. You can start buying back time, which is kind of where I'm at right now.
We're definitely going to have some time for Q&A at the end, because I'm sure you guys are probably thinking of some questions. So would you say, and I know you've done a little bit of everything pretty much with the online marketing space. I know you do a lot of content. Y'all need to follow him on social media because he gives a lot of free advice online. Has that really made a lot of return on your investment at that time?
Very much so. Once again, like I said, a lot of people hate on social media, but I think I'm speaking later on at the 7 under 30 thing, and I'm going to talk about two main things that I think would attribute to my success. And one of them is, and anybody can do this, this is a factor of anybody's success, is attention, your ability to capture attention. If you think about it today, the number one currency is attention, right? I mean, you look at the Kardashians creating $1 billion company, she's not because she has an amazing product, it's because she has hundreds of millions of eyeballs, right? And so you can hate on it, which most people do, which is totally fine because it makes you happy, or you can learn how to harness it for yourself. And so one of the biggest switching points for me was I was speaking to a friend and I was scrolling my Instagram or something, this was years ago, and he was like, are you a consumer or are you a producer? And that was when it switched in my head, which is like, you really never want to be a consumer, right? You don't want to buy Apple, you want to own Apple stock, right? So there's like all these subtle changes, and I realized I really should want to be a producer instead of consumer. So me personally, even though I have an okay following online, I don't consume any social media, like less than an hour a week probably, but I produce, we put out close to 40 YouTube videos a month right now. So like we put out a lot of content, but to answer your question, yes, it's been a huge return on us. I think one of the things that we've done is we've really narrowed down the platforms that I wanted to prioritize, which for us is YouTube, because and that's my big recommendation to anybody here. I don't care who you are, what you're doing. YouTube will be the number one social media platform in the next 5 to 10 years. And I like it because it attracts the right people, right? I don't like TikTok because I'm not trying to attract people who have an attention span of 4 seconds.
Right.
And I like YouTube because it's long form content. I can go really deep in stuff, and then someone will, be like, oh, I'd like to work with them into a call. But to answer your question, lead tracking software, and for one of our product lines, Scaling Systems, it is our number one producer of clients, and these are clients that are paying, sometimes 6 figures a year to work with us. So these aren't like, a few $100s, and it all came from the YouTube platform.
And you have about 10,000 followers, or it's grown, I think?
No, it's on YouTube we have almost 40,000.
Okay.
On one channel, then we have a few other channels that have a few thousand, and then like over 100,000 across all the other different social platforms.
I know you mentioned you have about almost 50 employees. Does that include your VAs, or is it?
So people are really shocked to know this. So in one of our offers, what we'll do is once we train somebody or we build a system for them, we'll hand it off to someone trained to take it over for them. Most of the time it's going to be a virtual assistant overseas. And so we've placed close to 3,000 virtual assistants in the past 3 years. But people are mostly shocked to learn that my company has 2 virtual assistants out of the 50. And it's mostly because who I'm working with in one of our product lines are people that are around the phase and area where the virtual assistants make sense. But where we're at now, if you remember what I talked about earlier about me buying back my time, instead of me hiring, there's a great book by Dan Sullivan, if you do have a business, called Who Not How. But instead of me hiring what are known as hows, which are essentially, I'm telling you, hey, go do this thing, move your mouse, click on this, and do that, and that just unloads it off my chest, but you don't actually know what you're doing, you're just following this SOP. To who's, which are like, hey, I would love to have the ability to do 40 YouTube videos a month. Go figure out how to do it, right? That's a how. Oh, that's a who, excuse me. I always feel like I'm a doctor, so I'm talking about that. But that's a who, right? I'm just like, go figure out how we can do 40 videos a month. And so I'm going to have to pay that person a lot more because there's a good chance they've done that before. So it doesn't make sense for us really right now to hire virtual assistants. Out of the almost 50 people, I think we're at 47. 2 are virtual assistants and everybody else are either in the United States. And actually, in all honesty, 90% of our talent is somewhere overseas, not in the United States. And it just happened to be that way because another big benefit of running an online business is that you're not limited locally to talent, which I have a brother that has multiple restaurants. That's the number one problem, is finding talent. Like if you had to hire someone in a 5-mile radius of Tallahassee, and for me, I'm just like, who's the best person in the world that can do this? And if they happen to live in Spain or the United Kingdom or Colombia, it doesn't really matter.
Is everything that you do related to content in-house?
Yeah, so we have, once again, going back to that who that I hired a creative director about a year ago, and when I got him on board, I said pretty much what I just said. So I want to be able to put out 40 YouTube videos a month. I want to grow our YouTube channel to 1 million subscribers in the next 2 years. And he was by himself first, and now we have a 13-person content team. So like on the org chart, there's him, and then there's editors, graphic designers, social media managers, publishers, people that respond to comments. And so we do everything in-house. I know a lot of people that do outsource it to other people, and I think that's a great way to start for sure, but the amount of content that we're putting out, I'd rather just pay somebody a little bit more money to just come full-time and work with me than have their energy and focus be split among multiple different people.
So for someone starting out, because I always hear it all the time from clients, like social media is overwhelming or content marketing and everything's it takes up so much time. So if they were to just start, obviously they can't just do it themselves because they have to obviously grow the business. What would you say? What's a good starting point?
It's a great question. So in my eyes, like what we do inside of our company Scaling is, as you know, we help other companies grow. And YouTube, or I shouldn't say YouTube, social media, organic content is a long tail growth strategy, which means that it's like very, very, very nothing for a while, and then eventually it'll take off. 99% of the people see nothing for 30 days and they quit and then they give up. I've been putting out 2 YouTube videos a month for 2 years, and I only have 40,000 subscribers. And then I have, other people that have 500,000 subscribers in 2 months, right? So, but I'm in the long tail. I don't mind. I'm long-term minded. But the point of that being, there's multiple different levers you can pull. So, there's advertising, outreach, that kind of stuff. You can get results tomorrow. I can send a cold email to someone, they can respond back, I can sign them as a client. But the power of organic content cannot be overstated. There's multiple companies out there who have grown to billions and billions of dollars purely on organic content. I think one of the strongest ones is HubSpot. Another really great book is called Inbound Marketing by one of the co-founders of HubSpot. But the focus on content should never be, I want to make this today to see money tomorrow, which is I think where most people give up because they don't see money tomorrow. It should be like, let me just pour batch 4 hours a week for the next 4 years, and I know that it'll eventually get a return on it, and just start producing content that way. So I think the first thing people need to do is switch their mindset around the expectations around content. And the second thing would be, at least in my opinion, choose one channel that matches your values and who you are. So I value long form content, like I value a good use of my time. So when I put something on YouTube, that's the smallest amount of views that video will ever have. Where you put something on Instagram, it's gone in 24 hours, right? So for a lot of reasons, I chose YouTube, but people choose TikTok. I have clients that have 10 million, followers on TikTok. So you can do whatever's best for you. But I would say just choose one, go 100% into that channel. Don't even worry about the other ones. And then eventually you'll start getting enough return where you can start hiring people to, like what we do is we'll take our main platform, YouTube, we'll repurpose content, and then it'll go to Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all the other channels, LinkedIn. But I don't really care about those. I don't even log into those. I just do the YouTube ones. So switching expectations and then just going all in on one of them, I think that could be said about almost every single thing that you do as an entrepreneur. We're always like, squirrel. Yeah, exactly. So, and I'm not immune to that. I do the exact same thing. But going all in on one of them and just like betting the farm on the one that you know that you can do the longest, I think will yield a high rate of return over a longer period.
I love that because a lot of people think they need to do everything. And that's where the biggest mistake I've seen with small businesses, they feel like they have to do a little bit of everything. But that is that's great advice. So I know we still have a little bit of time, and if you guys are getting ready and if you're eager to ask a question, I would love for you guys to raise your hands.
I don't mind.
I just have a comment. I'm in the social media for small businesses. I help several of them put their content out, but YouTube is like currently the #3 search engine, which some people don't think about. That it's just a place where you go and watch videos, but this next generation is using it to find ideas and things that they're interested in or support or advice, and it is a search engine. And if people aren't on it, they're really missing out.
Yeah, people don't even realize. So you said it was the #3, which it made the #3. What I
heard of it as #2.
Yeah, so I know.
Well, being in
Okay, got it. So maybe being, but we won't talk about that. We really right? Yeah. Fair enough. So I'll just do the way I know it is the #2 search engine in the world, but it's owned by the #1 search engine in the world, which is Google, right? So it can't be overstated how much search power is on there. And what I talked about earlier, like I have friends and buddies and mentors who will go from 0 to 500,000 subs in like 30, 60 days. And that bothers me a little bit. But for me, I am mainly going for searchable keywords. So 75% of our traffic to our YouTube channel comes just from searchable content. So if you type in something like how to use LinkedIn Sales Navigator, how to use Asana, how to use Zapier, how to use Slack, I show up on the top 3 for all of those. And so for me, I could make a video like how to make $1,000 a day in the next 30 days, but also that's not my target clientele as well, right? So we decided a long time ago, although the vanity metrics like views and subscribers is good, I guess, for the ego, I really care more about the long-term keywords of someone that I know. Like if someone types in, how do I get clients through cold email? That's exactly what we help with. Then that person's already at almost the last stage of the awareness process, so I can be like, okay, cool. And we help people. So I show people how to do it. Oh, and if you want us to do this for you, click the link below and book a time to do this. But it's an amazing point, and I think that people sleep on that fact for YouTube, and I think people get intimidated by the camera, right, a little bit. Yeah, and the longer form content style of things, which is cool. I was shy on the camera when I first started.
You also have a podcast.
And I have a podcast for another form of long form content as well. And that one we kind of use with more of the viral side of stuff, like this person made $100 million this year. But I would say that if I was betting the farm on one thing, at least for our company, I could turn off every single ad and all of our outreach for all of our businesses, and I could just have a YouTube channel going, and we would still have an 8-figure company just from that by itself.
You made a good point that you are focused on one thing, and I think that's what a lot of small businesses and entrepreneurs don't hone in. I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. But what is the one thing you want everyone to know, and then make that really efficient so that you can be a scalable business?
Yeah, and I think that a lot of times people do that exact same problem with every area of the business. Once again, myself included, I'm not immune. But it's like, I want to sell this product, and I want to help these types of people, and these types of people, and this social media, and also this person over here said we should do Facebook groups, and that person said we should do cold outreach. And the truth is, my mentor, he says marketing works, and that's the bottom line. Marketing works. It's something that you're doing wrong if you're not acquiring businesses. And I think that you can make any channel work. I can make Instagram work if I wanted to. I can make TikTok work if I wanted to. But for all the aforementioned reasons, that's why we chose YouTube. And I even was trying to do, I think sometimes when you make a little bit more money, it doesn't mean that you become smarter, right? So like I was still spending more money on all these channels. And about 6 months ago, I was like, all right, if I analyze all of our deals for the last 12 months, 90% of them come from YouTube. And that's with 30% of our efforts go to YouTube. I said, what if we just never do anything new for any of the other social media channels? We create 2 new YouTube channels and we just go all in on YouTube. And that's what we've done. And like I said, we 4x our output, but we had almost 12x our revenue from that change, right? So it's not a direct correlation of 4 times. It's astronomical. So for that reason, going hard on one is the biggest thing. But like I said, when you asked me that question earlier, most people, YouTube, man, you won't even see any results for it. I mean, if you guys did go to my YouTube channel, you could search my oldest videos first. There's some atrocious videos on there that I leave up as a lesson for other people, right? As a warning to other people. But it's a long game that you have to play, and most people don't have the patience for it.
You also have email marketing. You do a really great job with that too. Because I know some platforms have closed up. I mean, at one point Facebook was down for a day. And I know email was like a great backup for people who didn't have it working. But no, yeah, this is great. I'm so glad you're saying this about YouTube because people are sometimes like downplay because of all the content. Like I see a lot of my kids watching these random channels, right? But I'm glad you brought up the mentorship side of things. So when did you start seeking out mentorship, and how did you find the ones that you felt like worked with you?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when I first started the business, I decided I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I told everybody I was an entrepreneur, which didn't really mean anything, but it made me feel good at the time. And I started by first buying a $997 course, right, online, which a lot of people would knock, like, oh, do scams, whatever else it was. But, I'll be really quite frank with you. The course was, I won't curse here, it was garbage. Like, it was really, really bad. But there were a few key things that I pulled out of it that did help me propel me forward a little bit. And if anything, one of the things it did for me was show me, like I said at the very beginning, other people. So I was in this community of other people doing the exact same thing as me, right? So it brought me closer to those people. So first thing was $997. Didn't really teach me much, but almost opened my eyes a little bit. For the next 9 months, I made $3,000 in total revenue. For another speech that I did the math, and it comes out to around $2 an hour as well. So I was making more money as a waiter, in all honesty. But I don't regret any of it. I learned quite a bit. Then at the end of the 9 months, I was about $10,000 in credit card debt, because I hadn't been really working that much, and I was about to give up, and I ended up paying the last part of my credit line, which was another $3,000 to go to this in-person event in Atlanta, Georgia. Something kind of similar to this. So big shout out to everybody that's watching this and that's here right now. And that was the first time I met a person that was doing $100,000 a month in their advertising agency. And this guy looked exactly like me, was my age, right? And didn't seem astronomically smarter. And so I just was like, how did you do it? And he pretty much told me, I just did the only thing you should ever focus on is lead generation. He was like, just do leads, just cold email. And he was the one that actually introduced me to virtual assistants. Came back home, hired my first virtual assistant in the Philippines for $3 an hour. And within the next 30 days, we did our first $10,000 a month. And remember, we did $3,000 for 9 months prior. And so then, once again, going back to finding the thing that was working in 10x, and I hired 3 more VAs. All they did was outreach. All I did was sales calls. And then at like 9 to 11 o'clock at night, I would do the fulfillment side of everything to make sure it was working. And so from there, people talk about the stock market, real estate, cryptocurrency, and you're getting like anywhere from a 6% to a 300% to maybe a negative 300% if you're in cryptocurrency right now, return on it, right? Where betting on myself, I have made, obviously an astronomical amount more as far as rate of return is concerned, but most people don't think about that. So when people have a little bit of disposable income, they go, oh, should I buy this house? Should I do this crypto? And I don't have the answer to everything. So you should do what your risk reward portfolio profile is. But for me personally, I have always won by betting on myself. And so I would put some of that disposable income or that money into either a course or a mastermind, because the truth is that you can learn, if it's a good person, you can really learn a lot more in a condensed version of time than you could on your own. So I am not really anybody special. The nice thing that I've done is I continue to pay multiple 6 figures a year to people that are way ahead of me, and I get to kind of stand on their shoulders and kind of cheat a little bit is what I think of it, right? And then my job, as I see this, to turn around and do the same thing for the next people coming up again. But I cannot stress the importance of paying somebody else to that, and they just have to have been exactly where you're trying to go, right? And I've done that multiple times over again, and even if I didn't get a direct return on my investment as far as dollars is concerned, I think that you can learn a lot about the entire process that can help you.
And you also get a lot of connections in the community as part of it.
Yeah, people literally will join, so we do events twice a year, and we're going to Vail, Colorado next month with about 30 of my clients, and my clients will pay $100,000 a year just to come meet other people there. They'll meet one person who they can leverage the audience for, and then I never see them ever again. They have no need for me other than that networking. So yeah, I think another great point of it is the networking. And when we talked about earlier about learning an online service business, the other nice thing for me is I would go to these events and these masterminds and these BNI meetings, Chamber of Commerce, and I would have the thing that everybody wanted, which was more leads. I learned the thing that everybody wanted. So I would just be the most popular person there, and then I would just sell 10 people there on my services. So you have a great point. I think the other really big benefit of it is meeting other people who you even network with, or leverage their audience, or they become your clients.
I have to say, I went down this rabbit hole of different courses as well, so I totally get your experience. But I found Ravi's course overly generous, and I had other people also in the program saying, "You're not charging enough," because I would go into these pretty expensive courses and not learn much. I would get one nugget, but he provided so much value with each module. I'm like, I can't finish it all.
Well, I think the other thing people make a mistake is they're obviously everybody, when you're buying something, if you think about it, you just want a deal. That's what really buying psychology is. And so you're never going to buy something if you think that you're kind of getting screwed on the deal. So it's easy for me to be like, oh, let me charge more, because you're saying I should charge more because you feel like you're not charging enough. But that's why, at least I think, that we're doing decently well, is because everybody thinks oh my God, you should be charging more, which is exactly what you want. You don't want the reverse of that. And like you said, you join other people's programs, you're like, I paid this amount of money for this right here, I could YouTube this, right? So I think people can get a little greedy around that, and I try to not go down that rabbit hole. But yeah, we always just try to, whatever the cost is, right? It's just a value cost discrepancy. So whatever the cost is, let's just use the number, say $1,000. I want to do a $10,000 value so that you always feel like you're getting a deal on it.
Yeah, I'm interested in your business model and how you monetize. So traditional agency models would be container-based, commission-based, project-based. It sounds like you have and also performance-based, where you share revenue with clients. Sounds like you also do events and some content as well. So tell us a little bit about your business model.
Yeah, excellent question. So I've had the advertising agency for 2.5 years. I scaled it to around 430 active real estate agents in North America. So I was just serving the real estate market. And that was my first taste of quote unquote success, and I really hated it, to be honest with you. It was not the model that I wanted. It was a nightmare. I didn't like working in real estate. So I actually pivoted my business, and now we run more of a growth consultancy where we still run ads for our clients, but instead of you paying me monthly, let's say $3,000, you'll pay me one time up front. I'll build the system for you or your team, and then we'll just place it inside your company. So it's instead of hiring an advertising agency that you pay every single month and they're kind of using the cookie cutter formula, you just pay me one time. I go inside of there, look at your offer, your business, your avatar, your product, and then I'll create the ads, the funnels, everything, and give it to you, and then I show you how to run it yourself. So it's more of, honestly, if I had to put it in a vertical, it would be more in the lines of private equity than it would be on the sides of advertising, except when we don't take equity. So we call ourselves non-equity partners. So what we do is we have different programs, but I always tell people, you're not an advertising agency, you're not a SEO company, you're not a do-it-yourself, done for you, done with you. Can I just for one thing? I'll just say one thing here. I say you're a do whatever it fucking takes company, right? So that's what I always tell people. So to say we're an advertising agency would just be almost discrediting everything that we do. And so for us, it's a holistic package. Our goal for our clients is to pretty much have it so that you have a client or customer acquisition system by the time you're done working with us, which is 4 months. So we charge one time up front to build that system for you. If we don't build the system for you, that's made you at least the return on investment. We give you your money back in that 4 months. And then once we've decided that's what our offer is, then we think of ways that we can bolt onto that offer. If we talk about the value and cost discrepancy again, it's cool. All right, here's the cost and here's the value if I was to give you a customer acquisition system, right? What if we added 2 events a year, right? It cost me a little bit more money, but at the same time, it would increase the value by 2x. What if in addition to that, I was able to host weekly mastermind calls where I was involved in them? So now the value's gone up a little bit more and cost has risen just slightly. So here are all these additional things that we're doing, the content, the masterminds, the one-on-one work, the additional modules, all that is still part of the same program and it's still part of the same package price. But what we've done is figured out a way to give that additional value at a lower cost for all of our customers. So I don't make any money off of the content, like we make AdSense. I don't make any additional money off of the masterminds. It's all upfront, our clients pay us the money and then we deliver, and these are all things that are included inside of it. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay. Good question. Anybody else? Nobody?
We still have a little bit of time. This is really awesome. You guys are so lucky. But I'm glad we're recording this because I know Ravi had several of his friends like, hey, can I go and join?
Yeah, I didn't even realize that it was.
I should have said, hey, invite all your friends.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, no, he like runs events throughout the year too, and then several of his clients.
Did you come to our Skills event?
I have not made it to
Okay,
one
you
yet.
gotta come to this. So we host an event every year in April, May in the Miami area, which
Yeah.
we'd love to have people out as
That's
well.
why I got him to come here.
Yeah, it's a little colder here than it is in Miami,
I know.
We're dying here.
You're dying. No, yeah. So, would you like to have any closing statements?
No, I won't keep anybody longer than I need to. I will just say that for those people that are in the entrepreneurship world or thinking about going the entrepreneurship world, or maybe you're stuck in the entrepreneurship world, the one piece of advice that I would give you, since you didn't ask me, is what I talked about earlier, which is the short-term versus long-term focused, right? So a lot of quote-unquote mistakes I made in my early entrepreneurship career was because I was very short-term cash focused, right? And almost at the cost of maybe my brand reputation or at the cost of a few relationships in my life. And I think that a lot of things in your life you'll see an improvement on if you shift the time horizon that you give it. And this is another lesson for you. When you're speaking with other people around you, if everyone's talking about, for example, when I was at Florida State, everything we discussed was what are we doing tonight? What are we doing tomorrow, right? Like that was the extent of our entire life was in the next 24 hours, right? And once again, if you're that right now, I was the exact same thing when I was in college. But what I started doing was I started getting around other people where they were talking about this is what this is going to look like in 10 years and 20 years and 30 years. And when you start planning for things that are 10, 20, 30 years in the future, like you have to do those little things today that you know are not going to have a return, like content, like spending a lot of ungodly amount of time creating a great product or service that people may not even get access to for a few weeks or a few months, like building a really strong world-class team. Keeping your team on board when you have down months, because you know that, okay, one down month is going to look nominal in the grand scheme of 30 years of my life in this business, right? So, you know, and that also goes into if you're near graduating, you're watching this right now and you are graduating, here's a quick fact you don't know about me. I didn't know anything that I was going to do right when I went to graduate. And the only reason I did law school was because other people told me that was the right thing to do. And I always, not to digress, but I always felt bad for my sister because she's a year younger than me, and they would say, what are you going to do? And I would just like, a good little trained boy, be like, law school. And they'd be like, that's awesome, because that's what everybody says when you go to law school. And then my sister, they'd go, what are you going to do? And she's like, oh, I don't know. And they go, oh, you'll figure it out, right? And I'd always be like, haha, right? And in reality, what I ended up learning was that, you know, even the year I quote unquote wasted, I wouldn't say wasted obviously, but spending a year afterwards just fully dedicated to supporting my dad, I didn't really, you know, grow a business, I didn't go to law school, and still, after that year was done in 3 short years, in my eyes, we've done something really amazing. So I think the point of that being like, even if you don't have it figured out yet, I think that's very stressful, at least for me it was when I was in college, because everybody else seemed to have it all figured out. But I can also tell you, I've talked to Fortune 500 CEOs, I've worked with like some of the largest companies in the United States, and I'll talk to their CEOs and they don't know what's going on. You know what I mean? Like these are people that you think are like, have everything figured out. So anyway, I guess the lesson there is, first of all, always have a longer term focus and vision on what you're doing. And the second thing would be that if you don't know what it is right now, you don't have to worry because you're thinking about what's happening in the next 30 years, not what's happening in the next 3 days. So.
I know you have another event to run to, and that's why I want to give everyone a chance to meet you afterwards and just kind of connect. But you made me think of another question I wanted to ask you. So you spoke about the future. What it is that you see yourself in about 5 years then? Like, do you see yourself focusing on this the whole time? I know the online marketing space is kind of getting crowded and everything related to consultation and building a business online. So
yeah, excellent question. So before we wrap it up, thank you for everybody who came here. I really genuinely appreciate it. I know you guys have done one of a billion other things today, so it means a lot. And if you're watching the replay, thank you so much. As far as what the next 5 to 10 years looks like for me, like you said, sure, markets are always getting crowded. We're always having competition grow up there. But like I talked about a moment ago, the majority of competition is thinking, can't see past their nose. So, and I was also that at one point. So I'm not worried because I'm willing to spend more for our clients than they ever will be. And that's just because I've been doing this for enough years that we have enough money in the bank. And so, I'm not worried about competition. We will always shift and adjust to become a better company. What I'm looking for the next 5 to 10 years is to shift from, like I was telling you, right now, we'll help a company, they'll pay us, 5 figures. We'll help them grow. Our average client makes around $100,000 in the first 4 months of working with us. So we get them almost a 10x, 8x of working with us. And that's just 4 months, right? Let alone the clients that have gone on to, build it tens of millions of dollars in additional equity value and then exit, right?
And we didn't even mention that you pretty much helped generate over 140 million.
Yeah, for our
all your
clients.
clients.
Yeah, exactly. So our goal in the next 5 years would be to start taking a piece of that pie. So instead of just saying, hey, give me this money up front, which has been great for cash flow for our company, but if we go back to what I said a moment ago, which was the equity longer term play, like how do I do this for 30 years? It would be like, great, let's take this company that's valued at $1 million, let's build this acquisition system, and now they're valued at $50 million, and we took a piece of that equity, so when they exit, we get a lot more than what our original retainer would be. So that's the next play. That's essentially what private equity is, and we've done it with over 2,200 clients. We have, if you look at us as private equity, we have one of the largest private equity portfolios, but we're not doing that because it's kind of complicated, it's messy, and wait for them to exit. So for now, the cash thing is great, so it is short-term focused, but in the next 5 years, we're going to go full-time in private equity.
Well, this has been so awesome, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Can everyone just give him a round of applause?
Thank you.
Yeah, use the time to connect with him. Please follow him on social. It's great value for free. Please continue to join us in the rest of the week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.